this very first one and let people get here. But while we're waiting, I would love to see who's in the Zoom with us, where you physically are right now, not like, your kitchen chair, but like what city, what country. And then what's your beverage that you have with you? That's going to tell us a little bit about your time of day. Although I'm in the afternoon and I'm having another coffee. So that's just because it's a weekend. So drop your name, location, and your beverage of choice for this session. And if it's nighttime and you've got a glass of wine, just lie. Just like you did during COVID. Pop mine in too. Zach, you need to pop yours in as well.
That was number one, Stacy.
Stacy, where am I? I'm in Leiden. Oh, good for Brian. He was honest. Nice job, Brian. Ooh, Red Bull and water. Oh, that's because it's so early for Zach. Zach's in the States and it's like 6 o'clock maybe for Zach in the
On the
States.
dot. Yep.
On the dot. I joke, I just moved to the Netherlands last weekend so that I didn't have to do this at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm in a much better time zone for this. We've got people from Guangzhou, Dakar, Riyadh. Nice. Emily in Toronto. It's early for you too, Emily, right? Yeah. South Korea. Me, it's perfect time, middle of the day, 1 p.m. Lots of people in Asia. Oh, Koh Lanta. You had to like come in from outside. Sounds
We
so
just
lovely.
started vacation, so we're on vacation right now, regularly in China.
Oh, normally you're in China. Nice. What break is it? Is it which break is it in China? Like it's the
It's the
fall.
national holiday
I
for
was in
them.
Beijing for like 7 years.
Nice.
Yeah, I loved it. I miss it, strangely enough. Zach, how are we doing on numbers?
Pretty stable. We're still missing just a couple folks, but I think we
Let me
might
know
be
when
on
you
this.
believe I have quorum.
I think you have quorum. Say,
Perfect.
let's charge ahead.
Okay. Everyone, I want to introduce you first to Zach Lowe, who is an administrative assistant. I'm not sure what your title is, Zach, at the PTC.
So,
But
operations manager at the Principals Training Center. But today
operations
I donned
manager.
my administrative technology assistant hat.
Well, and he's been like a Stacy Wrangler for the last couple of weeks because this is my first PTC course. And so I've had a learning curve in terms of the technology. For some of you it's your first time as well, I'm sure. So he's been wrangling me for the past couple of weeks. So he sort of does everything and takes care of everyone. So he's here to help us with breakout rooms and facilitate all of that. So he'll just be quietly in the background assigning you places. I'm going to introduce myself in just a moment, but typically we have someone from PTC who comes in to introduce the course, especially this is a new course for PTC. And so what we have is a voice recording from Bambi, who is the CEO of OSAC, which is our which is our umbrella organization between PTC and TIE. So I'm just going to play this voice note for her because it was really important to her to be able to welcome you. But she's wrangling board members right now in a board training, so she couldn't get out. So I'm just going to play this. And Zach, if it's not loud enough, let me know, okay? On behalf of all of us at the PTC, I welcome you to this brand new program, Leading Recruitment in the International Schools. My name is Bambi Betts, and I am the director of the Principals Training Center. You are joining over 1,400 international educators who have participated in PTC and other programs this past year. The PTC began 37 years ago
with the very focused purpose of providing practical leadership training for principals and directors of teaching and learning uniquely in the international school context. Today, we also provide online and in-person programs for not only for principals, but for teacher leaders, for counselors, those involved with EAL, and most recently for governance members. And in all of those, you can earn a certificate, which has pretty good currency out in the international schools world. The purpose of all of it, every one of those programs, is to positively impact student learning. Whatever is worth doing, it has to have some impact on learning. So keep that in mind as you are working together. The skills that you're learning in this course are going to assist you in doing the most important work, and that is to ensure that there is a highly effective teacher in every single classroom, every single day, for every single child. So we're very excited that we were able to bring this course to you and to start to raise up the quality of our recruitment processes so that we are able to achieve that goal of a highly effective teacher in every class, every day. I really wish I could be there with you. I know Stacy will know that I wish I could be right there, learning alongside you, engaging, etc. But you're in the very capable hands of Stacy Stevens, who's a longtime experienced and expert international teacher, leader, and now facilitator. So I'm wishing you all well as you all go forth and lead.
All right. So I definitely want to recognize all the work and passion that, Bambi has for the PTC and the work that they do. And I think that this is going to be a really interesting sort of experience for us all. It's the first time the course has been taught. So we're going to be looking to you for really good feedback, really good insights about how do we best help support people in this really important activity of school recruitment. So I am the director of the International Educator, and I actually took the job a couple of years ago. I repatriated home during COVID because of elderly parents. And I was actually looking at going back abroad and looking for jobs and doing some interviewing when Bambi approached me. And when Bambi approaches you and asks you, do you want to chat? You're like, am I in trouble or is this a good thing? And it was definitely a good thing. And so she wanted to talk to me about leading the International Educator because I've been in international schools for over 25 years. I actually met her as a director of learning many years ago when we brought her into the school that I was the director of learning at to do some training with our board and our teachers. And we've just sort of stayed in touch. And so, in that time, especially through leadership, I became really interested in recruiting. And at the time that Ty was speaking to me about joining Ty, I was in a recruitment process and feeling sort of the failings of that process on the end of being a candidate. I wasn't in charge of hiring anyone, but I was on the receiving end of that process and what that process looked like. And the idea of working for a group that centers around recruiting, supporting teachers, supporting schools really resonated with me, I think, because of what I had experienced in my role in schools as somebody who did recruiting and what I was experiencing at the time as somebody who was looking for a job. That I was like, I think that we can do better in these ways. And so last year I chatted with Bambi. I said, I think a hole in our skill set when we talk about leadership is thinking about the system of recruiting. I always kind of go back to systems and structures. And I never felt like when I was recruiting that I might have been in a system, but there wasn't a lot of structure. Like I didn't really know what to do. It was like, go and hire these positions. But then, well, what's the process? And so we were, working really hard on recruiting, but we weren't always working together. I maybe had one process, somebody else had another process, but we were all in the same school. So it really got me thinking about like what's important about recruiting and how do we best support people in this skill set of establishing this and looking at it as a system in a school. Because, as Bambi said, like hiring is the most important thing that we do. And I can tell you, as somebody who's been in the position of recruiting, and I'm sure many of you have as well, like it doesn't always feel like we're treating it like the most important thing that we do, because we still have our other jobs. We still have so many other things going on. But it's like, are there ways that we can think about working together in our organizations to make this a more impactful experience within the organization, and then also for the people that we hire? So, in terms of doing that, that's where we really came up with this course and the structure of this course. Uh, PTC doesn't do a ton of half credit courses. They do have some. So, this is a new one for them to put on the agenda. And so, we're doing synchronous, asynchronous. This year, I've already decided if I get to do this again next year, it should be longer. There's so much here, so much more here than I ever even thought in terms of thinking about the systems of recruiting. But this is essentially like our schedule, our pattern of work. Is we have our synchronous sessions, which we're going to have today, which sends you off to your asynchronous this week. We come back together next week. We'll process some of the asynchronous work that you did. We'll move forward in our synchronous work, and then we'll send you on to the following link. And in order to support you in this, there are multiple collaborative platforms and ways for you to seek help and ways for you to get support. In Learn Worlds, you have all of the lessons, all of the links, everything that you need in Learn Worlds. There's also a resource book that anything that you might want to write on, or anything that you might want to, like it might be a checklist or a reflection or a reference piece, they're all in an ebook, which is available to you, which Zach, you were going to pop that in the chat again, right? That ebook?
Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay. So that you have that. So a lot of times when I'm going through here on the slide deck, it might reference a page number. That page number is in your resource book, and it's something that you might want to refer to as a resource. For every module, there is a Calendly link that for me, you can sign up if you want to have a one-on-one conversation. Take advantage of that as much as you need to, want to, don't need to. It's just a resource that you have available to you. I really encourage you, as you're getting to know each other in this space, especially when maybe you're in similar regions and you're dealing with similar issues around hiring and HR. One of the most powerful things I think about PTC is the connections that you make in the course, and those connections that you can keep beyond the course. So seek each other out, use each other. We're going to have some partnered work, as well, even this week, that starts to line you up with some people. But find your people in this Zoom that do similar things or thinking about similar things that you can connect to, and you can build a relationship beyond just this course. We will use a lot of breakout rooms and different things here. There won't be as many breakout rooms in the asynchronous, but just in the synchronous, we'll use that model to bring you together with different people. Sometimes you'll stay through a couple of breakout rooms with people to continue doing the work. And then this is just a screenshot. If you haven't yet been in Learn Worlds, of what Learn Worlds looks like, and you can see when something needs to be submitted, when something is a link. This is a screenshot of our course right here. All right. And if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and Zach will alert me if there's something that I need to address right now. Okay. So this is going to be our agenda for today. It's going to be fast and furious 2 hours with 4 breakout rooms planned. So we're going to be busy. And if you're sleepy or just waking up, hopefully this will give you the energy that you need for the next 2 hours. We're going to spend a little bit of time getting to know each other, starting to make those connections, really looking at standards and the use of standards in your current practices. We're going to look at those standards and we're going to unpack them. Now, one of the things that we use, and we'll talk about this a little bit at PTC and TIE, are the standards of practice for international schools. You may have standards in your school. You might have Danielson, you might have Strong, you could be using something else. You might not have anything, and that's okay as well. So anything that we're doing, we're going to use the standards of practice for international schools. But anything that we're doing is applicable into your context. So we're going to use those standards of practice that come from PTC and TIE. They're used in your courses as well. We use them in recruiting and job seeking at TIE. They're really the foundation of everything that we do. So we're going to use those as our frame of reference, but it's all applicable to whatever you might be using in your school to start thinking about how do I take some of this thinking and adapt it for my context. So we're going to spend a lot of time with standards today. And then I'm going to introduce you to sort of your recruiting map. This is something that's going to kind of stay with you the whole way through this journey. All right. And then we'll preview what's going to happen for you next week. So I'm going to offer up some norms for us as we collaborate here virtually. I'm just going to give you a second to look at those. And then to yourself, think about what are the ones that are actually most important to you in this sort of virtual space. Just sort of note that and hold on to that throughout this session. But this is so that we're all kind of coming from the same place and hold the same expectations around listening, behavior, how we participate, and then the sort of thinking that we want you to be doing in here. All of this might use the context here in this Zoom of one thing, but we're all here for the context of our school and looking, what do I learn? What do I take forward? And how do I have impact with this learning in my school? So we know that we're always going to be thinking about transfer and what does this mean in my context? So here are the 3 essential questions that we're going to be wrestling with really quickly. And what I'd like you to do is drop into the chat which one is most significant for you in your role to wrestle with today. And just drop into the chat 1, 2, or 3. A lot of 3s. It's interesting. All right. Thank you. It's always kind of interesting to get a gauge of what people are most interested in terms of what we're going to be working on today. But these are really going to frame our conversations, and these are going to be kind of the things that we're thinking about and wrestling with as we move through the day. All right. Our first breakout room is going to be getting to know each other, and Zach will assign you into breakout rooms. There'll be about 3 of you in a breakout room. You're going to be thinking about what do you want to share about who you are, your background in recruiting, and what are you hoping to get out of this course. This will be about 10 to 12 minutes. We'll time keep it. I'd like the person for whom this is when you get into your group, whoever is in the latest time zone, you're going to be the facilitator. So those of you in East Asia, if you're in East Asia, you're probably going to be the facilitator on this one, okay? So whoever is the latest time zone will be the facilitator. This is going to be about 10 to 12 minutes, so about 3.5 minutes per person. Share a few things about yourself. We will cut and paste this into the chat in your breakout room so that you'll have reference to it. And then we're just going to let you have that conversation. Before I go, are there any clarifying questions or anything that I can answer before we send you off? You just have to unmute and shout it out. All right, Zach, send them off. Back, everyone. I did not want to share my screen right now because I actually want to see all the faces in the Zoom, because when I'm sharing the screen, I actually can only see a few of you at a time. So I thought for this reflection piece, we'd just come back together like this. So one of the things I'd love to get a sense of from your conversations in your groups, were there any themes that kind of came out about why people are here, or any kind of connections that you made in your conversation with a group? All you have to do is just unmute yourself and speak. And I have excellent wait time, so I can wait for somebody to unmute and speak. Be brave.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Stacey. Hello, everybody. I suppose in our group, I was in a group with Lisa and Bill and Sunny. So very interested in that standards-based recruitment process. So similar focus there. And also, a variety of different backgrounds from teaching, and Sunny's in HR. So yeah, just looking at things from different perspectives, but still a focus on the standard-based practice for recruitment.
When I got the class lists of who everyone was and where they were coming from in their roles, like I was very excited to see the variety of roles and the number of perspectives that's going to bring to the table, because I think that as somebody has been a candidate more recently, you're going to have a certain experience. And if you're an HR director, it's going to be a really different experience. So I thought that was like a really nice observation, because I thought that's going to lead to a lot of richness in our conversations together. What are some other connections
Thank you.
or themes that people notice? Thank you, Amanda, for sharing. I'm looking for one more. That's it.
I'll share. I think we talked about the challenges of ensuring the faculty is diverse, of what needs to be done and how that can be managed to ensure that diversity is there.
Other people have similar conversations like your group did? Did other just kind of wave your hand if you had a similar conversation in your group? Yeah, I think that is a challenge. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about. We've got a couple of HR directors who are going to be talking to you about the idea of pipelines and what does that look like? Because I think that a lot of schools are sitting there waiting for a recruiting agency to miraculously create the pipelines and create access to more diverse hiring pools. But then I think we also, as schools, have to kind of own that that's our responsibility as well. So what happens from the school side? Because if we keep waiting for organizations to do it for us, we'll just keep having the same problem and the same conversation. So what is it that we own? So I think that's something that we'll definitely have conversations about. There are no answers. There are only thinking and possible things to try, is what I would say in terms of that. But that'll be a conversation that we really engage with, I think, in the second module. Any one last comment or observation you'd like to share for the sake of the group? Okay, I am going to dive back in to the presentation. And we're going to move on, actually, what's going to be our second breakout room, where you're going to get mixed up a little bit here, because what we're going to do is we're going to reflect on the talent recruitment framework. So I created this based on my research and some resources that I use to help inform the content of this course. And so one of the things that I always feel like I need some sort of way of breaking things out so that I can kind of hold on to the different components of a big idea. So recruiting is a really big idea, and there's a lot of different things under that umbrella of recruiting. Some of it were things that I didn't think about. Like I learned so much actually in this process of looking at like what other countries are doing in terms of addressing recruitment specifically for education. So I wanted to share the resources that I used. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, these were the compilation of resources that were my core resources for building this course, that really I have to give credit to in coming up with the idea of kind of creating a framework for international schools and for things for us to think about in international schools in terms of what does and should recruitment look like as an entire sort of system of our work. And so we've got those sort of 5 different categories that we're going to dive into each aspect of this. But one of the things that you did as part of your pre-work is you had a self-reflection quiz to kind of think about all of those different categories, those 5 different categories, which are on page 6. Sourcing talent, equity for talent, assessing talent, talent management, like keeping talent, right? All this work that we do, how do we plan to recruit talent? So there's a lot of things there that maybe you have done, maybe you haven't done. So I want to kind of get a gauge of where you are at in terms of like what really pushed your thinking. Like what were some areas of strength and growth when you talk about this and what your schools are doing? And what do you most want to dig into in this course? Now, I like to use a program called Miro. And so Zach is going to pop the link in. But I want to kind of show you this because we're going to work on this quite a bit, actually, these different sort of programs or the different templates that we can use in Miro. So what I did is I basically took what pushed your thinking, areas of strength and growth, and what's your group most interested in, 2 to 3 things max. This is very navigable and everybody has navigation privileges. And when you're navigating, you're not messing with anybody else's Miro board. So you can zoom out, you can zoom in. You can do that with the plus and minus system here. You can, with your mouse and your fingers, just move like this. If you hit command, if you're on a Mac, you can zoom in or zoom out. And then when you click in here, you can type and it's going to automatically resize things for you for the size of it. See how the sizes get smaller and smaller and smaller. All right. So you're going to be assigned into a group and you have space here on each one of these to kind of capture your group's thinking. And it doesn't matter how small it gets because we can always zoom in even more. And if you decide it's too small, you can make it larger. It's up to you. Okay. But this is a place where we can work independently and then come back together and see what everyone has done and what everyone is thinking. So when Zach assigns you to a group, it's going to have a group number associated with it. Each one of these have a group number and the same color. This is a sticky stack so that you just want to grab one and keep adding, you can. Over here on the side is text, more sticky notes if you want one. That's why I just kind of gave you a stack so that you could use the stack that's there. So it's very easy, I would say, to use and navigate. I would suggest that you select a recorder and a facilitator. Somebody who's comfortable with the tech should be your recorder to capture your thinking. And then someone else in your group who maybe didn't facilitate the last time, kind of raise your hand to be a facilitator this time, because this is how we're going to process through that reflection that you did that started on page, that is on page, it starts on page 6, Zach. Do I have that right? I know that's where the framework is, and then I think that follows. Zach didn't know I was going to ask him so many questions.
Yes, starts on page 6.
It's
I would
correct,
ask-
page 6.
This is my first time. I'm like, can I talk to you in the session and ask for help if I need help? And he said yes. All
Yes.
right. Questions or clarifications? I see some chats just to make sure if I've got this.
I believe you were going to address if somebody hadn't completed the
Thank
reflection. Yeah.
Knowing that we just started and we had some people who just registered even in the last couple of days. If you did not get a chance to do this self-reflection, choose group 5, Zach.
Yes, there are 5 groups. The first 4 are just numbered. The last one I've literally retitled "Go Here if you have not done the reflection."
If you haven't had a chance to do the reflection, go to the group that Zach made and take this time to do the reflection and then start going in when you're done in group 5 and you can start doing some of that thinking together because the reflection won't take as long. And we're going to give you like 15 minutes to sort of process through this and a little bit more, even if you need it. So when the groups open, Zach, they get to choose whether they're 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yes, correct.
And don't go into a group that is more than 4 people. All right. Are we all back now, Zach?
We're all back.
So how did using the Miro tool work for you? Once I gave you the appropriate permissions. That's user error on my part. I now know the difference between a commenter and a editor. Was that thumbs up okay to use that tool? Could you navigate that? Oh, look, see how happy I am? because of that? Okay, good, because we're going to use Miro a lot in this course. And so one of the things that I really like about it is that ability to kind of do your own work and then zoom out and see what other people are doing, sort of all in the same place. So what I'd like to do is take a look at what was on the Miro board based on your conversations that you had. And then you guys can look at the Miro board as well. So this is when you zoom it all out, you can't really see much. But when you zoom in, you can kind of see what were some of the things that pushed people's thinking. Like, let me just ask, because I know as a larger group of people, what I would love to see is on a scale of 1 to 5, you give your an individual score. 5, that reflection illuminated a lot that you hadn't really thought about. Down to 1, like I feel like if I were to check these off, we're thinking and doing most of these. Where would you place yourself in your school? Just drop it in the chat. 1 to 5. 1 being we do a lot of this. 5, this really pushed my thinking in a lot of different ways about what we might consider. Seeing a lot of 3s, a 4, a couple of 4s. Others, just drop your number in. Okay, thank you for doing that. You know, one of the things that's nice about us being in this sort of format that we're in and online is one of the things that I also wanted to see is just sort of that like temperature gauge there. But also when we zoom over here, like what is it that we really are interested in digging into? This helps me choose some more emphasis topics as we go on from week to week. So if you didn't get a chance to do this and you want to go back in for your group or just even for yourself, kind of highlight something that was really like, I really want to dig into this. This helps me in terms of allocating time and sort of the limited resources that we have here in the time that we have together. So my question was from the conversations that you had, and to take maybe a minute to go through and look at everybody else's, are there some themes that kind of came up? Something that was shared, something that you're seeing a lot of? Those of you who put comments, I cut and pasted your comments into the document. So go ahead and just take a moment to read over this and sort of look for some themes. All right, I'm just going to come back to you all. Is there any 1 or 2 things that sort of popped out to you that kept coming up either in the conversations or that you see sort of documented on the Miro board?
Um, I can go alignment and standards based. I think that kind of comes up on the board, but that was a big part of our conversation of like not knowing what other sections of the school do when they recruit because it's kind of left in divisions. And also even if there's multiple campuses that they may do things differently. So it's that alignment and consistency piece.
Can I ask a question? Because this very much like resonates with my experience in recruiting, as it felt like silos that ES, MS, and HS, and I was in a K-12 position. So, I mean, if you agree with that, would thumbs up, thumbs to the side, thumbs down? Does it feel like a very siloed activity in your schools? Sorry, I need to turn off my effects in the background. I apologize. That's not fireworks. That's not good that we're in silos. But so, Emily, you're saying yours is a little like not like that. What do you attribute that to? That it's not siloed?
Yeah, we have a staffing meeting that's across the school once a week to talk about where we're at with our positions. And that's been huge in just having conversations and even being able to move people across the school into different divisions.
See, and what's interesting is we had a staffing meeting once a week, and I would still say that we were siloed in how we hired and our practices. Like I would have a totally different process
Mm,
than the high school principal, even though we were meeting weekly, maybe to coordinate around couples or positions. We were each in the process of hiring, still doing our own thing
interesting.
because it wasn't really coming from the top. Other observations or connections that you made by looking at what everyone is saying. Emily, you have a question. Is that just during heavy recruiting periods, or do you do that all year long?
We start, so I'm not at an international school, so it's a little bit different on our timeline. So we start in December and then we go all the way through the rest of the year. But our heavy recruiting is kind of February, March.
Right. Other observations or any connections that you want to make from really that reflection and having those conversations about your thinking about that? One more thing for the good of the group.
I think it goes into what you were just saying is having the systems school wide, right? Really, really having a true systematic system that we might do certain things, but actually have it written down and having the processes in place, I think are things that many of us are looking for.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully this time together will provide some vision and direction for that, either for yourself or something that you can take back to your school. So we're going to move now. I'm going to go back into a little bit just about PTC and TIE so you know how we sort of relate to this work and why I, as the director of TIE, would be thinking about this is training and conversations that we need to be having in international schools. So TIE and PTC are sister organizations, and they've been around for almost 40 years. TIE predates PTC a little bit. And so what really we share is really this desire to how do we uplift the profession of teaching? And we do it in different ways. But for everything for both of our organizations revolves around the standards of practice for international schools. Recruitment and job seeking is something that the international educator does. And we have standards-based portfolios that candidates can use. And we have those portfolios, job hunters can find those portfolios, or sorry, recruiters can look at those portfolios and look at evidence to evaluate candidates. Whereas PTC is really in the professional learning space, and with the goal in PTC really being about strong instructional leadership in our schools and equipping people to lead in our schools. And then an area that TIE has grown into this year is also around growth and appraisal. So in some ways, it's like PTC is about professional learning in schools, and TIE is about services that help support what you're learning at PTC. And we do that in a couple of different ways at TIE. So I just wanted to give you that sort of vision of like how these two organizations relate to each other. And really what it is at the center, it's this idea of being standards-based. This is a shift most of us at this point have made to in our schools for teaching and learning. So what does it look like to be standards-based when it comes to professional learning for the adults, recruitment, job seeking, growth, and appraisal? This is sort of the space that our two organizations occupy. And so our real focus on this course is like recruitment. So we're going to always promote the idea of standards-based. In this course, we're going to use the international standards of practice, but you can substitute your own standards in for that. If you don't have standards, then we're giving you ones to use. You don't have to take these with you, but this is just how we show what it looks like to be standards based. What's different about the international standards or the standards of practice for international schools is we collaborated with AISH. We collaborated with James Strong, who has growth and appraisal systems in the United States. We created with ALOC, which is DEI organization internationally, to kind of say what is different about what we do as international educators and how do we capture that in our standards. Because a national set of standards may look a little different than an international set of standards for our profession. So I just want to give you that context between that. So for us, when we really think about why standards are so important, it is that sort of systems thinking. Because here, this set of these standards actually go through 6 major aspects of what happens in schools. It gives us those systems that relate to each other and provides a common language across all of these systems. I personally think it's so important in international schools where we are often coming from very different national systems. So how is it we bring people together around teaching and learning and common conversations is we share a set of standards and core language together rather than me bringing what I bring from the United States and somebody else bring what they bring from Australia and the way they did it. By having standards and by saying that these are your school standards, you're establishing this is how we do things here. This is how we work around here. And gives us that same language, that same target that really helps create that ability to align. If ES, MS, and HS are using the same standards and processes, that's alignment. Maybe they don't have to work so closely together. If they share a system and they share a process and they share values and they share expectations, maybe it's okay if the work happens in silos because we're all sharing the same goal. But when we're kind of off doing it in our own way and making it up as we go along, that's where we get out of alignment. That's where sometimes we're not making great decisions about who we put in front of our students. And I think this is where by being standards-based, common language, it starts to bring equity into the system as well. I have equity for talent as a separate piece of the framework, more because I want to make sure that that idea and that thinking is front and center. But equity actually goes through everything that we do in the process. It doesn't live in a silo. But I wanted to send a really clear message in terms of thinking about recruiting, especially in our international schools. We really have to be designing processes around equity, thinking about bias. And so the use of standards is one of the ways of like creating common language, common expectations that starts to bring equity just at the front end of the process by what you're centering everything around. So on page 2 in your resource book are the standards of practice. We're using the standards of practice for international principals. Many of you have this role. Many of you maybe have had this role before or might have it in the future. But this is really what principals who are often doing the final hiring for a building, really, this is their skill set. So what I'd like to give you to do about 10 minutes, we're going to keep you in the same breakout rooms that you were in before. So with the same people, all of our learning here is intended to strengthen the standards. Which standards that you'll find on page 2 relate to recruitment and hiring in your schools? So when we think about the core skills of an administrator, how does recruitment relate to these core skills and dispositions of a principal, somebody who might be leading these processes in your schools, right? Are there any questions or clarifications about that? You're going to go back to the same groups. So hopefully you remember your number and you can go back with the same people. And we're going to give you about 10 minutes for this conversation. Send them off, Zach.
We're back.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Was that a trick question? Why might you characterize that as a trick question, Chantal?
It was funny because when like, what do you think? I was like, hmm. My answer to that was I felt like there were parts of all the standards that some people are doing in the school or that the school reflects in some way, but it is not consistent, and that the people that make the ultimate decisions are maybe not following what others are following. So it was really hard to go, which standards does the school align with? Because it depends, it probably would depend who you asked and who you were thinking about. It, like, as a school, it was a very difficult answer.
So if your school had or has a set of standards, should this be a challenging thing to answer? And why?
I mean, I can no. I mean, if your standards are clear and everybody's following them and there's processes in place, then no.
Oh yeah, I see you shaking your head a lot as well. And I popped into yeah.
We work at the same school. I mean, not literally, but like when we were like talking to each other, it was like yes, 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 but in bad ways. Just in terms of like both of us, I think had a very same vision of like what we would like to see, but then shared similar like, oh, you have that situation too. And so we were a group of three. But I would say in terms of the group of three, it was like two of us struggled and one of us was like, okay, human resources leadership, like this is super strong. Um, and so, yeah, I completely agree with everything you say because I mean, we have this sadly very similar experiences.
Other observations or comments from the conversations that you had? To what degree are all of these standards related to the practice of recruitment and hiring? Bill, I see you shaking your head as well.
Yes. Oh, there we go. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're all interrelated. One of the ones we talked a lot about was the culture piece. I think it was number five. How important it is to get the right people who are going to fit the culture of the school. And we were talking about, unfortunately, sometimes people just want the job, so they'll basically say whatever they want in order to get the job, and then sometimes when they come, there's a misalignment there, and we were talking about it's actually better to get a person of good character, even if they might have less experience, because that actually builds the culture of the school. So, and of course, that leadership around teaching and learning is really important as well. If you get good people, of course, you're going to have a really good teaching and learning process in place. So they're all very much interconnected. But one of the big ones we talked about was that culture piece.
I mean, we really firmly stand behind this idea because, as your observation, Bill, is like the standards are sort of interwoven through this recruitment practice. Like recruiting can touch all of those standards and expectations for a building level leader in a school. And I would say that if you put the head of school standards up there, it's the same. If you put the system standards up there, it's the same. That hiring is simply one of the most important things that we do, but we often lack a systematic approach that is shared and understood by all. And that's really why this course. is what would a systematic approach look like? What can we put in front of people like you all who are maybe building level leaders, parts of committees, HR directors, to say like, where's the gap between where we are and where we could be? So that's really kind of like for us, we stand on this idea that hiring is really one of the most important things that we do. And so the first sort of activity that we're going to work on that's going to take you through next week is a candidate profile. Okay. A candidate profile is not a job description. In fact, a candidate profile can guide a job description. The job description is what are your responsibilities in the role? Like, what do we need you to do? What do we need you to hold you responsible for? Whereas a candidate profile should really guide the hiring process. Because it's PTC and TIE, it's going to be standards based. I've done them when they were just like mission vision aligned, but I also believe that it's the standards. Whatever you're going to hire, whatever you're going to use for growth and for appraisal should be the things that we hire people for, right? This is a through line through the school that should be. So for the work that we're going to do, it's going to be standards based. This is going to get you familiar with the standards of practice and then give you a tool that you can use with your own standards in your school. But what we're really talking about is defining the ideal candidate so that we know who we're looking for and it helps us recognize them when we see them. And this is just the first piece of that information that we're putting out to candidates. By being able to describe what we're looking for and that be commonly known on hiring committees or teams, it can reduce bias in the process because we're all sharing the goal of what we're looking for. It helps get everybody in the process on the same page. It helps candidates as well. Like a candidate profile should be on your website. A candidate profile should be a part of the application process. Read our candidate profile, respond to the ways in which you think you particularly meet our expectations of a candidate for our school. So it helps those potential candidates to decide, is this the right place for me? Is this the school that I'm looking for? And then you've got to have a lot of other layers to what Bill said. You have to have a lot of other layers to say, like, is what you say in alignment with what maybe your references say? What evidence do we have that what you're saying is in alignment? Like, what are the components that we're looking at? And those are different pieces that we'll be working through in this process. But first, we're really going to start with this idea of the candidate profile. So and then you use it to create better job descriptions. These are the qualities that we're looking for. And then this is what you do when you're in this teacher role, this librarian role, this ed tech role. That's the job description. And then if you've got the standards that you're using in the candidate profile, it can help you with the interview as well, because we know what we're trying to solicit and elicit information around. So what we're going to work on, and you're going to get about 20 minutes today to start on this in a pair, because this is a paired activity. I'm going to show you an unpacked standard. You're going to form pairs, and then next week you and your partner are going to kind of divide up the work on the assigned standards and tasks. And then in our next session, we're going to come back together around the work that you do next week. And it's my hope that we can collaboratively with the standards of practice, develop a candidate profile so that you can take that away with you and perhaps use it in your process if you want to use those standards of practice as something to guide you, or take that and adapt it to your own environment and your own context to kind of help with this first initial step of kind of coming around and saying, like, if we have these standards and this is what we expect teaching and learning to look like in our school, what then does the candidate look like? So when you unpack a standard, you basically read the standard. I'm going to break it up into two different things: foundational concepts and functional concepts. So one is almost skills. What do we need you to know how to be able to do? And then the other one is dispositions. What does it look like when you're doing this? What are the dispositions related to that standard? So let me show you really quickly, because I unpacked the first one for you. There is a link that Zach will drop into the chat. And this is a process that I adapted from Daniel Johnson, who talks a lot about how to use leveraging candidate profiles in education. So it's got some nice sort of background information for you here to kind of go over in terms of like what districts are finding. One of the things is we know that in the States and in the UK and Australia, a lot of people aren't making it in the profession very long. So there's been a lot of conversations about how do we find the right people who we can cultivate and grow and keep longer in the profession. I think for us internationally, it's about reducing our turnover rates, getting people and getting the right people and getting the right people to stay longer. So I linked the whole resource there so that you can sort of see that process. And then I've broken it down by each standard. This is an overview of the standards of practice, that what they cover. I basically got the concept, what it uniquely measures. And I went in and I did the first one that talks about this is the standard. Maybe make that a little bit bigger for people. The standards about research-based practices. So I went through and I looked at the standard, unpacked it, and said, what is it that we expect people to do in this standard? I said the functional competencies were content knowledge, differentiation, lesson planning. And that for this standard, we need people to have a growth mindset and be a continuous learner. Okay, kind of putting those two different things, like what are my skills in content, and then who do I need to be in order to exemplify this standard. So I took this, and each one of you is going to have a blank one: functional competencies, role specific attributes, foundational attributes for success regarding the role. I then took my functional competencies and my foundational competencies, listed them here. If you have more than that, you just add a row. And then I went in and I defined the competencies. So for functional competencies, this is what it means by my definition. So this is where we're going to kind of divide and conquer this process, so that each one of you can kind of walk out with a candidate profile aligned to the standards of practice for international schools that probably transfers a lot into a lot of your other standards that you have. Our standards aren't radically different. It's just that we very intentionally put things in about cultural competence, transition, things that are very unique and important to international schools in our hiring processes. You can add rows here. I took and I defined. What you're going to do is you're going to decide who does what part. Today, what you really want to get to is you want to be able to identify the functional and foundational competencies together. And then you'll say, okay, I'm going to go take functional, you're going to go take foundational, and you're going to kind of divide things up. So then you can pull, the next step is like what's from your mission, your vision, your values to leverage. I'm going to go out on a limb here as well and say most of our missions, visions, and values are kind of saying the same things. So I think it's okay to just use your school, and it's probably broadly applicable to where you get in the end, and modifications can be made from there. So to say, like, what are the things that you want to pull out from your core documents that you want to feature as part of this? And then you're going to draft your candidate profile statement. And this is where I used AI for this. I used my definitions. I used the standard. I plugged in the mission for the school that I was using. And then I had it draft me a 2-sentence piece that encompassed all of these aspects of it. Because my least favorite thing is wordsmithing. We'll get to wordsmithing later. Right now, we just want to kind of get some ideas and some thinking on the table. And then we'll come back and we'll look at it all collectively next time. So what you're going to do is we're going to put you mostly into pairs. There may be a few trios. The room that you get put into, that is your standard. Okay. All of these standards are listed and linked, and it's this overview of the standards. This tells you your standard right there. So if you're assigned, I've done number 1. If you're assigned number 4, you're going to jump down to number 4, and you're going to do this process for this standard. and you're going to identify the functional competencies and the foundational, and then you're going to decide who's going to define what next week. Choose whose mission that you're going to use, and then you can use AI to draft a final statement. All right. And that is all written here, and that will be placed into the breakout room for you as well. Okay. Questions or clarifications on that process? So in many ways, we're just setting ourselves up for one of the tasks you're going to do next week, but it's a divide and conquer task. So you only have to do one part of it. All right. Questions or clarifications? Okay, we're going to send you into breakout rooms for about 14 minutes. I want to make sure I have a couple minutes at the end. All right, go ahead, Zach.
We're back.
All right, everyone. Hopefully you got who's doing what sorted and you got far enough. In that, if you didn't, you might want to use the chat to shoot your partner your email. If you need to follow this up from email, you can just directly send a message to them with your email. Zach, is there another way for them on LearnWorlds to
You can
find?
communicate directly in LearnWorlds as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a little new to LearnWorlds as well. I'm still learning. So that's one of the things, is just to make sure that you connect with your partner to have that draft ready next weekend, because we're going to come next weekend, we're going to come back and we're going to look at that. So 2 things, Zach is going to pop into the chat a feedback for this session. We always take the feedback really seriously. I mean, I'm here to meet your needs, both as a learner and how I facilitate your learning as well. So any feedback is welcome, so that I can reflect on that and think about how do I best do this for you next time. If this was too fast, too much, like, please let me know that, because it's the first day and we want to make sure we have the right pacing for you. And I definitely have been feeling the pressure of like so many good things to talk about, and knowing there's never enough time to do all the talking. So I appreciate the feedback. I really quickly just want to share a look at LearnWorlds, because we are on module 1 to make sure that we're all clear. So this was where we were today. If you want to connect with me, you can book it here. You click on the signposts. There's a list of everything that we're doing this week and what needs to be done with that. So it's the candidate profile, complete that for the next time. You're going to be doing a forecasting activity. You might need to connect with HR on this, or leaders at your school. So get started on that. Look at that today or tomorrow and get started on that early in the week to get that data. Now, there's some data you may not be able to get. That in and of itself is indicative of potentially things that we need to be thinking about. So don't knock yourself around if you can't find all the data. Just do the best that you can. We're going to start moving towards hiring teams and what's the importance of hiring teams. And then I have a selection of things for you if you want to go deeper and like watch a video or read this article and kind of think about what you're going to do. I'm going to show you your recruitment map really quickly here. It's in Miro. This has been set up. I know it looks really crazy right now, but if I zoom in, it's not so crazy. You each, and this is linked in LearnWorlds, need to go grab one with your name on it. And this is just a place for you to come and think about talent planning. What are some of your takeaways? What are some of the things you're thinking about doing? So it's kind of this journey that we're going to go through together on the talent planning, on the talent framework, for you to really constantly come back to this and reflect. And you can look at what other people are doing too, and maybe that prompts your reflection. That's why they're all here together, and that's linked in LearnWorlds. So I just want to thank you for your time. Again, here's my email. And if you want to connect with me, happy to stay back if anybody has any questions. Zach, anything I'm forgetting?
I think we've covered just about everything, Stacey.
All right. I'm happy to stay back and answer any questions. I'll